welcome all to the first event of this series, which we have in careers in STEM research and beyond. So just to give a brief introduction about what Reticulum does, we are a small community and we started back in 2020, and then we evolved over time to what current state is. And the problem which we have been working on is undergraduate research, because we see that undergraduate research is quite limited. We see that there are difficult journeys of scientific researchers which are majorly unheard of. And we also understand that undergraduates are not completely aware of the opportunities in research outside academia as well. So what do? We share success stories, and we focus on career development resources, sharing them. And we also discuss about career opportunities and different ways you can improve your career prospects. And that all we do by networking and mentorship. Where do we do that? We have our YouTube series known as Young Stars, specifically for undergraduates. We have a resources database on our website, which you can check out on our website in specifically the resources section by different groups. We have them. And currently, as we are in the live Q&A event with our guests, we do a couple of events on Zoom directly. To put it all together, we also have a final platform for discussion on Discord, which you are very much welcome to join. You can find the description and the link on our LinkedIn page. So, as I said, we are a platform to connect the undergraduates with research professionals, to share experiences and to facilitate next generation of researchers and grow them grow in their research careers. And with that, I would like to now welcome our guests. We have 3 guests for today's event. First is Amitabh Yadav, and he's currently a research fellow at CERN in Geneva. And Amitabh, could you please say a couple of words about yourself?
Yes, thanks, Ashwin. So yeah, as you mentioned, I am a research fellow in Geneva, and here my work is primarily concerned with creation of detectors, mainly radiation detectors, and their firmware and all the infrastructure that goes behind the scenes to maintain the safety of the work environment at CERN. So our detectors are installed everywhere throughout the LHC and do all the other experiments beyond, besides the LHC related experiments. And yeah, that's good to join here. And let's see if you have any interesting questions, I can answer them for you from the CERN perspective as well.
Thanks a lot, Amitabh, for joining. So next we have on board is Simran Asawa. She is currently a cancer biology PhD student at ETHZ. So Simran, a bit about yourself.
Thanks, Ashwin. Yeah, as he said, my name is Simran Asawa. I'm a PhD student at ETH Zurich. Currently, I'm working on studying the role of circulating tumor cells in pancreatic cancer metastasis, meaning to understand how pancreatic cancer metastasis pancreatic cancer spreads in the other parts of your body. And the reason why I'm doing this is because it's one of the most lethal cancer types out there. To talk about my journey a little bit, I did my bachelor's at NIT Warangal, BTech Biotechnology. During my bachelor's, I went to Poland for my student exchange. Then I did a master's in translational medical research from University of Heidelberg in Germany. And before going for my PhD, I decided to take up a project where I can get more acquainted to the lab environment. And hence I went to New York at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, where I was working in immuno-oncology and GI cancer. So happy to be here and happy to contribute as much as I can.
Thanks a lot, Simran, for joining. Moving on to our final guest, Shashank Pant. He's currently a computational scientist, computational chemist at Loxo Oncology at Eli Lilly. Shashank, a couple of words from yourself.
Yeah. Hi, Ashwin. Thank you for the invitation, firstly. And I must put out a disclaimer first, saying today I will be presenting the views, all of the views that I will be presenting are mine, not my employer's. And currently I'm a scientist working in a pharmaceutical sector, mostly using computational techniques, which include statistical mechanics, artificial intelligence, to look into various oncology targets. Yeah, and before that, I did my PhD from University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and before that, I did my master's in undergrad from IISER Kolkata.
Great to have you, Shashank. Okay, so let's now I would like to move on to, so let's get started with the questions. So the first question which came to us, and also which just comes to our mind in general, is that how did the journey actually start in India? In principle, I mean, most of us would be able to relate it, that uh, whenever you start, you always have this PCM and PCB. These are the only two streams which are there. And then you have to apply for, everyone has to sit for either IIT, JEE or PMT, you know. So how do you guys went into research? And I think I would like to start with Shashank, because you didn't go for IITs or NITs, because ICERs were rather unknown those times. And we know that it's a premier institute, but how did you decide for research and why ICERs?
Yeah, that's a great question. You actually took me back to 2008 when I was in my high school, I think, and I was going through the same thing, PCB, PCM. I think in my college it was just two options. There was no commerce.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just to give you a little bit of a background, I did my schooling from Lucknow in Uttar Pradesh, and just like any other high school student, I was also preparing for engineering exams. And I feel that is something which is deeply rooted in our society, at least in our area, because it's mostly either engineers or doctors. There are no other options. There are other options, but I think society is a little bit unknown about those options, or I don't know, they consider engineers and doctors to be the best things that students can pursue. But interestingly, when I was preparing for these engineering exams, I was going to a coaching institute, and that coaching institute also told us about other exams or other options that are available to us. And luckily, at that time, they also talked about ICERs. Although ICERs in 2010, when I graduated from 10+2, it was just a 4-year-old institute, because they started in 2006, at least the first two ICERs. And when I was told about ICERs, I did a little bit of a research, and it seems interesting to me from the perspective of that they are specifically focusing on science, which I know about, rather than engineering, which I'm completely unaware about. What is engineering? What is mechanical engineering? Although computer science you can still relate to, but mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, you don't know about it. At least I was unaware about it, what I'm going to study in those kind of courses. And then I realized I'm primarily doing it because of my peers or because of my parents, because that was the only option. Because if you don't like biology, which I never liked, at least till 2010, engineering was the only option. So, but the good thing, when I looked through the ICER brochure, I realized there are multiple pathways through which you can apply to ICERs. At least in 2010, they were allowing enrollments through KVPY, I think direct admission, as well as IITs, late ranks of IITs. So I thought, like, it is going to be just like any other exam. If I go for KVPY or direct exams as well. So yeah, that is how I came to know about ICERs, and luckily I got admission in ICER, and I specifically moved to ICER Kolkata after my 10+2 in 2010.
Great insight into the journey from 2008. That was great, Shashank. Now moving on to Amitabh. So you did your bachelor's from UPES, from what I understand. And so how was
Yes.
your experience over there? And how did you think, okay, now I don't want to go for placements, I want to go for research. How did that happen?
Okay, so my journey from UPS was very, very different from what I'm currently doing. I would have never thought like I'd be doing research someday, because like you said, UPS was a relatively lesser known college back in the day. I think it has been just 10 years when I joined the university. And so the good thing there was the interdepartmental projects were very interesting. And back then, when I was working with my colleagues and friends over there, the idea was not to do research, but just to create something interesting. And my background was in electronics engineering, so you can do all sorts of hands-on things. And in that sense, it was very interesting. So we started participating in a lot of competitions, and we won a number of them. And it was like, based out of the curiosity, can we create something that can be presented at an international level or something like that? And turns out like, yeah, we were doing some pretty cool stuff. Like in a competition we participated, we even beat universities like Princeton and Michigan State. And then we were like, okay, this is really interesting. Like maybe we can like form something from here. So it was actually my friend who was applying to some internships, and one of my seniors got an internship at CERN, and like I got in touch with him and asked him like, what did he do? And he was a CS person, so he gave me some tips. So I was the third person to be selected for a CERN internship back in 2017. And that was actually when I first came here in Geneva for the first time. I left the country and it was scary at the same time. But yeah, this when I came to CERN and when I saw like what actually is research, and I can apply the electronic stuff that I studied just to create like quadcopters or some electronic devices for household use. But you can actually apply the same knowledge to experiments that are going on for like the discovery of new particles or something like that, or like creation of new physics. So that was the idea, and like my supervisors were the ones who introduced me to this idea, and that sort of was the place when I found an overlap or interest into doing electronics alongside physics. And then it sort of took off. So I decided, yeah, let's keep going and just find what you're curious about, what you find interesting. You can just keep pursuing that. So that was sort of my journey.
Great. So your flight sort of took off and you are still in the midway, I guess. Let's see where it leads to.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like I would never have thought from 2017 I would join CERN again in 2020. This time like with a more permanent contract, you can say. But yeah, the things started turning from there. From there, it was quite fun. Yeah.
Great. Nice to hear that. So what about you, Simran? How did you start? Because I think you went for biotechnology in NITW. So how was your journey there?
I mean, my journey with research started actually way before that. So in high school, we had this. I used to participate in a lot of competitive exams just to get used to stuff, and I'm a nerd, so I loved it. And there was this one exam called Homi Bhabha Bal Vaigyanik, which you have in 6th grade and 9th grade. And I participated in the 9th grade. And after clearing the first level, in second level, you actually have to perform experiments. And that's where I seriously had exposure to the lab. And then I was playing with vernier caliper and all sorts of things, which are so cool for me back in the day. Like you're working with the chemicals and you're trying to really understand how experiments are designed and so on. So that's where it started. That's where I thought that, okay, research is something that intrigues me and I would probably want to pursue this. But I come from a family full of doctors. So I was really confused between if I should go for, again, either PCB or PCM. So in my case, as I said, I come from a family full of doctors. Nobody was doing research. Everybody was just so overwhelmed with all the patients that they were just applying or practicing the medicine that they learned, and they were never going deep into, how it all works and so on. So I was like, okay, maybe engineering is something that could bring me closer to the research, and especially biotechnology, where you can actually combine the biology with the marvels that engineering offers. So that's how I landed up in NIT Warangal Biotechnology. I did not apply for any other branches. I only applied for biotechnology, which is something that people thought back in the day was very stupid. I was told a lot, many times. But I think I'm glad that I did that. And then I knew that, as I said, right, I knew that I wanted to do research, but I was not sure what exactly. So during my undergrad, I was exploring a lot of stuff. So I've worked in domains like nanotechnology and regenerative medicine, material science, a lot of stuff. Even in Poland, I took like 25 courses in 2 semesters to really understand what's all going on in life sciences, where I can find my niche so that I would apply for masters accordingly. So after 4 years of exploring, I realized that translational medical research is something that intrigues me. And that's how I did my master's. And then one thing led to the other, and now I'm here doing my PhD.
Great. So you sort of proved all the people wrong that why did you take a biotechnology?
Exactly.
Good. Okay, that's a really good, that's really cool insight into all three different kind of journeys, how they all went all, you know, in their ways, and all up to the research part, which actually brings me to the next question. And that is something which I also put up in the Google Forms. So first of all, what I would like to know from you is like, what do you understand by research and what a PhD is? Like, what does a PhD do? And when I put it on Google Form and I ask that, do you understand what a PhD does? People say that they don't know that, which is surprising to me actually. So what is research and what does a PhD mean? Maybe Simran, you can start it.
For me, research is basically a puzzle. You have a question and you're designing experiments to find an answer. And in that, you have to consider all the variables, all the constants. You have to make sure that you're not going in with any bias, and you're generating data in the best, cleanest, robust way possible. And then you are trying to analyze it and interpret it. So there are multiple parts of research, and some might be interested in one part, not the more than the other. For example, I know a lot of people who really like doing technical stuff, but then when it comes to data analysis, they're like, okay, I don't really enjoy it. And I also know some people who really enjoy data analysis, but hate technical part. So you can really find where you fit in. But basically, a PhD offers you an opportunity to do all of it by yourself, so that you can be an independent researcher. So even if you have help from the lab, of course, but you are the one who is leading your project. You're the one who is designing all the experiments. You're the one who is conducting all the experiments, and you're the one who is analyzing all the experiments with the help of your lab members and supervision of your, PI. So that's what PhD is for me. It's an opportunity to become an independent researcher and really understand how you can answer a particular question using certain set of experiments and data analysis tools.
Great. Shashank, would you like to add something? Because you've already done PhD, I guess, quite long, not quite long, but yeah, recently, I guess.
Yeah. So I think like I completely relate to what Simran mentioned. Only thing that I might say is like, actually, I thought about research a lot, like in general, the question, what is research? And I never liked the idea of calling it as a research, because it's like research, like if you just divide it into two.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always prefer it as a search rather than calling it as a research. But yeah, I completely relate to what Simran mentioned. It's essentially it gives you, so at the end when you complete your PhD, when I look back, rather than talking about specific projects, I feel it is more about the confidence that you can work on anything starting from scratch. That is something which I feel that you get after completing your PhD. But in general, when we talk about PhD, it's all about getting novel ideas, designing your own experiments, designing the way how you are going to work on those experiments. And also what matters is the outlook, or like the bigger picture, what you are trying to target. It's not about just one experiment and the result that you are getting from experiments, but the more important question is, what is your question? Like, what are you going to solve with this particular set of experiments? So yeah, so it's all. And apart from that, another interesting thing that PhD teaches you is about the collaboration, like working in big teams. And then you will start appreciating, I would say, the power of collaboration. Like, because if you are working on a particular question, and if you are collaborating with a lot of scientists, like be it in your lab or be it outside lab, then you will start seeing things from a different perspective, rather if you work in isolation on a single project. So yeah, so I, like in short, it's more about confidence. But in general, if or in like specifically speaking about PhD, it's more about designing experiments, and more importantly, designing good experiments, and also looking at a bigger picture, what you are going to answer.
Great. That's a great insight, that how it's like a training you to be more a better designer and understanding and better team worker. Okay, so how about are you, Amitabh? Because from what I know, you have not started PhD, but I think you're still very closely related with research, working in a hybrid environment and so on. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, so like you said, I think Simran and Shashank's points perfectly summarized what the PhD journey is about. And like all I can add in this is that PhD is also about having a safe space to explore different things without getting worried about being like having like very bad consequences. But yeah, like you have excellent colleagues and excellent mentors along the way who will guide you, not uh, do the work for you, but if you're stuck or if you're going in the wrong direction, they'll be there to tell you that, yeah, you can look at these couple of things and collaborate with other researchers, look at what's going on in your field, or create new experiments on your own. So in general, I feel like if you're going for a PhD, the main motivation that you should be having is like, am I interested in this particular topic to explore it fully, to become an expert in it, so that I can like go about creating something new in this field. So my motivation to do a PhD would be to be passionate enough to create something new, to give back to the research community, like create your own mark, some in this sense.
Great. That's a really great insight, that you actually add on to the knowledge, you add on to the community, you add on to some of the other development which is happening at the background. That's a brilliant insight. So actually a follow-up question, maybe we can start with Amitabh already, is that, so I have when we set up the form, there was one question which I asked, and I was actually surprised by the response. It was that, do you think that it's a good idea to do PhD as a backup option? Like you do a PhD and then you can do something else. So what do you think? Do you think it's a good idea, or should everyone do a PhD? Is it like that straightforward, like getting a PhD, or it's not a big deal? Or what do you think?
Honestly, like it's not the best idea to keep a PhD as a backup, because PhD is a huge investment of time. You will be you'll be spending 4 years or like much more if you're doing it in the US, and it's you'll be like in the prime of your life. You could be working on something much more interesting thing that you are actually interested to do, and because PhD would not pay you well, it will be more of a spiritual journey for you. It will be more of a self improvement journey for you, a learning experience for you. So only do a PhD only if you are very interested to do explore a certain topic. I think like Shashank would have much better insights on whether it's a backup option or not. But like I sincerely feel that like yeah, PhD is something like you should be doing only if you're really interested, because at some point it will leave you very frustrated. You'll be pulling out very long hours. You'll be putting in a lot of effort, all-nighters, and this will be a very common occurrence all through the 4 years of life.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And Shashank, would you like to add something to this, that PhD as a backup option?
Oh yeah, definitely not. It's definitely not a backup. It's like it's a huge investment of time, and like you like from my experience, I would say like it's very difficult to do any other thing if you are already in a PhD. Like if you are already doing a PhD, so definitely it's not a backup option. Rather, I would say it should be something that you will be focused on if you are pursuing it, because because it's a very time consuming thing. Like more time if you invest on any other things, it's going to be very difficult to complete your entire PhD journey and having good experience out of it, because you should feel satisfied after completing your PhD. That's something important. And another thing that you asked in this question is PhD really important? So I would say it's definitely not important. It should be a personal decision, because I see PhD as a funnel actually. Like because as you move or progress in your research career, you become more and more focused. Like your degree of freedom are very limited after completing your PhD. Like, for example, I did my PhD for like, let's talk about someone else. Let's say someone did his or her PhD in computational neuroscience. Then it's a very limited field. It's a very niche environment. Like, it's very difficult to switch or move from that particular area to, say, somewhere like completely experimental oncology kind of a research, because it's very diverse set of techniques. Rather, I would say, like, if you are deciding on a PhD or if you are thinking about a PhD, you should start early. For example, in undergrad. Undergrad is the best time to explore because you are not liable to anything. Like, there is no pressure of publishing. There is no pressure from a supervisor or anything. You are just doing it as a kind of an activity that you want to do, just to explore what are your options and what it is. So yeah, so that's why undergrad is like the opening of a funnel. And if you start enjoying it, try to find a specific area, which is always difficult to find because there are so many areas and so much diversification in research that sometimes it might take you 5 to 6 years even to find what you like or what you enjoy doing. So yeah, so if you are thinking about PhD, I would suggest, like, start early, start in your undergrad. Like, you don't have to do something like as a, you don't have to invent something in your undergrad. Just explore all the options, try out different research, and I think professors are more than happy to help undergrads learning about research. And if you talk to any researcher, they will be very excited when they talk about their field. So I think working in labs, talking to seniors, even in undergrad, that will give you enough sort of a view that what PhD is and what you will be doing. And when you apply for PhD, and I'm specifically talking about PhDs in US, at least for first 2 semesters, they give you full freedom to explore any lab that you want in that particular university, and just explore what they are doing for a month or a month and a half, and then switch to another lab, try out those things or the techniques in that particular lab, so that it will give you enough sampling, and it will also help you in making a decision which lab you are interested in or which area in general you are interested in to pursue.
That's really great. That's a really great way to see it. Like, you sort of funnel out a lot of things during undergrad. So all the undergrads who are listening, I think this is the time when you actually enter the funnel. Yeah, that then you can finally find out the field you're interested in. With that, maybe with that perspective, moving to Simran, because I think you have switched quite a lot of fields. So this funnel example sort of fits exactly with you. So I guess you also agree that PhD is not a backup option, but then what exactly do you think, like, why should anyone interested in research pursue a PhD? Do they need a PhD, or without PhD also something is possible? What are the alternatives in your case? What about you? What about from your side?
First of all, it cannot be a backup option. Okay, if it were a backup option, I would be sitting at my home right now enjoying the comfort rather than running around freezing myself. So no, you really need to be motivated when you're doing a PhD. Things don't always work out. Unless you're really into it and you have a good reason to do it, you would really burn out. So it's not just like as Shashank and Amitabh already said, it's investment of time, but also it's a mental and physical investment. And it's a lot of work, and people underestimate it. But I also assure you that if you're really into it and if you're passionate about it, it's very rewarding. So it's really about what you want and what you're looking for from your experience. Regarding the funnel, you are completely right. I was really, I was moving around the funnel trying to figure out where I fit in. And I think that's as Shashank already said, it's perfectly right. Undergrad and masters is the time where you actually figure out, especially undergrad. In undergrad, I have taken courses from herpetology to molecular sciences to plant biotechnology, everything, to really understand where I fit in, because I love everything. I'm interested in everything. Everything intrigues me. So that's part of my nature, but that doesn't mean that that wouldn't tell me where I would fit in, where I would want to pursue further. So take this time and make sure that you can go for elimination method like I did. I went for all the things. Then okay, which one is the best one for me, or which is not the best one for me, and then you can like choose one field. And I think I answered all the question, I guess. Yeah, thanks.
That's really good. Okay. Okay, then actually maybe moving to the next question to you yourself, because currently the next.
Maybe I can.
Yeah,
Maybe
sure.
I can add a little bit to the same question, because I was thinking about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was thinking more in terms of the opportunities that in India that are available to undergrads. Like, for example, like even if you want to try out things, there are a lot of programs in India. For example, there are summer research programs from all the research institutes, including IITs, NITs, ICERs, IISc as well. And apart from that, there is this Indian Academy of Sciences. They offer like 3 months, I think, per year, 3-month or 4-month research
it's
programs.
2 months right now.
Yeah, the
2 months. Okay.
program, I think.
Yeah, that is those kind of programs. And I think that those programs provide you with a good opportunity to go into a different environment apart from your institutes and try out research, and you are getting paid for it. It's not like you are paying out of your pocket, like if financial kind of a thing is a concern. And those programs give you a lot of advantages to try out different research, because each year, if you go to those kind of programs, you can try out let's say your undergrad is 4-year undergrad, you can try out 4 different projects. That is anyways giving you a lot of things to explore, right? And I think that is a good way if you want to move into research, and if you want to try out different things. Those kind of programs are really good for undergrads.
Yeah, that's really true. I also had a couple of internships to add on to that. And actually, I would also like to point out here that in Reticulum, we have even covered quite some internship and interviews of these students who went through these internships on our YouTube channel. And we'll probably also have an event soon regarding that specifically. Okay, then maybe moving on to the current days, how do they look like? So maybe I can start with Simran. So what are the challenges that you face every day as a researcher? And how does your, let's say, undergrad or a postgrad, how does it actually contribute to you? And you said that you face challenges and you need a lot of motivation. How do you actually motivate yourself?
I mean, challenges can be on so many fronts. It can be on logistical front. It can be on a technique that you never did before, and now you have to learn it all over again. Or so many, like I can't even begin to tell you how many challenges can come. But the best part is you feel amazing when you overcome them. So, I mean, for example, in my turn, I did not work with mice before this. So, and now I'm learning how to do surgeries with mice and handle them and so on. And the first time that I did it, I was so scared. But now I think that I'm able to do it quite okay. So I think that gives you a confidence that, okay, you learn something new, and that sort of feeling that, okay, you can figure things out along the way is very important. Coming from the undergrad and postgrad part, so I think it's really important, or everything somehow adds up to the bigger picture. For example, the other day, there's another PhD student who's doing a microfluidics engineering project here, and she needed some help. And I remembered something from back in my engineering days, and we used those formulas and something, and we figured out solution to her problem. So I think it's not just about how it contributes to my project, it's also about how I can collaborate with other people with that knowledge. And another thing, like I did after my master's, I worked on a project for 2 years back in New York at a hospital. So I also have a lot of clinical experience. So now whenever we have any patient sample and there's something interesting going on, and there's something that others don't understand because they've never worked in a clinical setting, so I can help them. And that's why my project includes both biological point of view and clinical point of view. So I think it's always, the PhD helps you bring out the best out of what you have already got, and to learn more skills so that you can become the more improved version of yourself.
That's actually a very insightful way to see it. So I would also maybe add on to this that you would agree definitely that pay attention during your classes, during your lectures, and get good pointers. Probably that's not going to harm you, at least, right, in your undergrads and postgrad.
For sure. I mean, I did not know this until recently, but apparently ETH or universities like ETH really look for good pointers. And one of my friends, even if he has amazing pointer, he has to take one particular course, because in that course he has a little bit less grade. So I'm not saying that grades are truly essential, because obviously he got accepted. He just has to repeat that course. So they did see something in him, but it also matters. So there's a balance that you have to find out.
Yeah, great. So Amitabh, because you are currently as a research fellow in a hybrid institute, so how does your like daily challenges look like? Do you how do you deal with them, and how exactly has your training so far helped into that? What's your take on this?
Yes, so my like day-to-day activities involve a lot of collaborative work, and sometimes like since I'm still a fellow, so I don't have to worry a lot about the managerial stuff. I can just approach the researchers, so it's not a big issue on that front. But sometimes it can also be challenging on how to approach different groups. But still, so for example, like the other day, I was working on our devices, and we were exploring the idea of, can we do predictive maintenance of the experiments or the detectors. For example, if when the LHC is running and the detectors are operating, and at some point certain detectors, certain elements of the detectors fail. So can we use machine learning to detect or predict when a certain device is going to fail? So these kinds of challenges occur all the time, and then we are discussing with other groups what will be the security take on this. For example, our organization is constantly being hacked, like tried to be penetrated into. So our network of how the data is communicated with all the research organizations of the world is also very, very complicated. And then we are collaborating with the security teams to just to discuss that our protocol that what we are implementing is not interfering with their security standards. Then there are certain European regulations that you have to meet. So that's also on the table sometimes. So yeah, that's basically like one of the challenges that like come almost every day. And this is in addition to what you are actually hired to do. So yeah, so there's never like a very strict definition of that. Yeah, this is your job description. You'll be doing this sort of work today. You basically go to the office, you start working on your own thing, and something comes up, and then you have to work on that in parallel.
Great. So I guess the whole gist is that you just get trained and then you eventually learn during doing. Actually, that's how you.
Yeah. So yeah, actually, Simran, like she stated a very good fact that your experiences come from a very you are very unique in terms of experiences that you bring to the table. For example, my background initially was electronics engineering. I was studying embedded systems back in bachelor's, and then when I went to do my master's, I studied quantum computing. So I like brought that perspective on the table, and then for a year I was working at UC Berkeley, and there I got the perspective of how I can apply quantum information to high energy physics experiments. And basically all of that culmination of different experiences, one of the groups got interested. Okay, yeah, this thing is something that we can use. We have a quantum information perspective, we have the high energy physics perspective, and he is an electronics guy, so he is best fit for this job. So all of that, they create you are basically creating your own job description through your experiences.
Okay, that's actually a very different take on that. I really like it. Okay, what about you, Shashank? Not maybe because you have been a PhD and now you're already been, I think, for about 6 or 7 months, right? So how's your day? What are the challenges that you still face?
Challenges, I think, like challenges is something like everyone face in their life, right? Like anything that moves you out of your comfort zone is a challenge, but that's how you are going to grow. Like otherwise there is no growth. in your career or in your knowledge or anything. So in terms of challenges, I would say like we work on different projects or different targets, and those targets are anyways challenging. That's why companies are working on those targets, right? So yeah, so challenges are like just like any other challenges. And after your PhD, I think you start appreciating those challenges less because you are used to facing those kind of challenges, right? From your undergrad to your master's to your PhD. So I would say now I never like this thing never get registered in my mind like this, oh, this is a challenge, this is a difficulty or something, because at the end your job is to solve it. So if like there is it's better not to register it as a challenge, because that puts a barrier in front of you, that how are you going to complete this threshold. But as Amitabh and Simran were mentioning, I think it's more about the experience that you have or the experience that you bring to the table. Like, for example, if I talk about myself, I was never doing this kind of a research in my undergrad, because in my undergrad, I started as a polymer researcher, where I was a researcher where I was using or synthesizing polymer. And that was a time when I realized I'm not good in experimental lab or experimental setting. But essentially, what I was doing, I was making drug vehicles using polymers. And then surprisingly, I got a chance to work in a research lab in US, and that was a theoretical field, more of a computational setting. And that's how my interest in computation started. But when I was doing that kind of a computational research, I realized the principles that we are using or the ideas that we are using are something that I can directly borrow from my previous experience of polymer science. Directly, I can borrow it and use it. So that is something that you are bringing to the table because the diversification that you have in your in your undergrad. And then I moved to another research group in University of Manchester, and then I started realizing that almost all the research that you do is sort of interconnected. Like it's more about the integrative environment rather than again working on a particular problem in isolation and using isolated techniques. If you can bring to a different perspective into your research, that's always a good thing, rather than just working on a particular set of techniques and using it to solve a particular problem. So when I started learning this thing, then I thought it's better to get more experience in undergrad. And that's how after my undergrad, before moving to University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign for my PhD, I did a 1-year research assistant kind of a position at IISc Bangalore. And finally, when I started doing my PhD research, I realized that all the experience that I have gained till now, it's actually helping me. And again, I'm repeating myself, but it is bringing a different kind of perspective in the projects that I'm currently working on. So I would say, like, firstly, you don't feel anything as a challenge as you get more and more experience in a particular field. And secondly, undergrad research as well as PhD research, or if someone is doing postdoc, so everything is going to matter at the end. Like when you are going for a more permanent position out of these experiences.
Great. That actually really makes sense, that you build on to make it more, to make yourself in a way, and that continues the journey. And that journey question actually brings me, that journey part brings me to the next question, which is maybe directly directed towards Shashank himself, is that, so because I think you have recently made a switch, which many people want to know, this academia industry switch. So, so what are the different opportunities that you could imagine after different stages of graduation? For example, after PhD, do you go for a postdoc, or after masters also maybe you can enter industry? What are your takes on that? What are different opportunities? And I would maybe sorry to interrupt, but maybe you could also add a little bit of insight. How does it look in India, India and abroad? If you could also put a little bit of insights into that.
Yeah, sure. So I think like going into industry is something you can do even after undergrad. So it depends on your career plans or what you want to do in long term. So obviously, like if you are directly switching from undergrad to some kind of industry, your experience is less. So it might take you more time to learn things, but that is perfectly fine. That is not wrong, and that is something which we see quite frequently in India or anywhere in the world. But if we talk about switching from PhD or the options after PhD, so there are again multiple options. Like there are options where you can go for a more sought after thing is going for a postdoc. But at that time, I think you should also try to ask a question to yourself that you are like, what is the motivation behind doing the postdoc? Is it like, do you want to start your own research lab as a professor or as a research scientist in in some research institutes? Or is it just you are doing it just because it's a path that most people follow after PhD? And definitely, based on the path that you follow, it's going to be a different kind of experience, right? Experience vary, like a postdoc might have different experience compared to a research scientist or compared to someone who is going in as a research fellow to some national labs. So these things are going to vary. But the thing that most people ask, like I have seen these kind of questions many times, is what is the difference between academia and industry? That when you are switching from academics to industry, how the environment is going to look different. So that also depends on which company you are joining. But based on my experience, I would say it's just like any other research project that you are working on. Like research is not going to change in general, but there might be some different kind of a restrictions that might come depending on if you are in academia or you are in industry. Like everyone knows that academia is transparent, more transparent, I would say. And that primarily because it's a non-profit organization, that when you publish a paper, you are not getting some like money out of it. Like patents are a different thing, but it's more transparency. There is more transparency in academics compared to industry. But when it comes to research, both the environments are very competitive. Like you are going to face, or I would say almost similar kind of challenges in terms of your research projects in both the fields. And industry is something that you can also start after your masters as well. So in industry, there is so much of a hierarchy that you can join industry based on your experience, and obviously if there are opportunities available at any time in your career. So it is you who should decide what is the right time for you to switch in industry if that is something you want to go into in future.
Okay, that's actually really, really helpful. What about from your side, Amitabh? Because you did not do a PhD, or you did not do much of a, let's say, researcher thing, but you actually currently work more or less in a permanent job at CERN. How did you find that opportunity? How did that come to how that position came to your mind? Amitabh, we cannot hear you. You're muted, actually.
Okay. Yeah. So the CERN was always there in my mind, because like the first time I came as an intern, it like completely swept me off my feet. Like I can practically find everything. Like it was an engineer's haven. It's practical. Like you always think of CERN and you think physics, but actually CERN is famous for employing more engineers than physicists, and you can practically find everything you want to do. Even biological imaging is done here. So we have, and specifically for electronics and a computer engineer like me, I always wanted to apply here. It was a very competitive back then, but I built up that sort of requirements, or like I started contacting people who would give me just a hint of what's actually going on and what kind of skills are required to be here. And I started working on that. So I feel like the best time, like as Shashanka said, like it's completely up to you when you join. So here I get more of a mix of academia and industry thing, because there are always PhD students, postdocs here. So you get that perspective as well. And then you also have to meet certain deadlines, which is more related to industry, you can say. So but it's sort of the best of both worlds, or worst of both worlds, because yeah, like if you think about academia, there's also no fixed timetables here. You can end up working all-nighters here as well, and then yeah, it's like more of a personal decision in the sense, which is the best option, academia or industry.
That's a very good insight into a hybrid institute.
Yeah.
Maybe going back to Simran with the same question. So because you're doing a PhD, so some people also have asked me, and maybe this question also fits here. Do you think doing a PhD in industry, and how does it work? Do you have any friends in that group, or how does it work there?
I mean, doing a PhD especially in Switzerland, where industry and academia are so close, I have a lot of people in my network who are doing PhD in industries, and in industries also you can have two types. One which are like really nascent companies which were born in the academic part and now are still transitioning into their own companies, or then you have these established Roche, Novartis, the giants. So based on what I have heard from my friends, first of all, it's really corporate environment, meaning you work like 9 to 5, whatever, which is something that no one would say when they talk about PhD. So that's one very different thing. But also, it's very regulated, meaning it's very confidentiality driven. You can't talk a lot about your project. Also, a lot of reagents which are usually accessible to academic institutions are not accessible to the industrial people. So my friends actually have to make plasmids which are easily available on Adgin now, but they can't use it because it's only available for the academic things. But in case of industry, they have like shitload of money, so they don't have any issue. They can literally do whatever they want. So there are pros and cons, and I think it really depends on what you're looking, like what you want after your PhD, what you want out of your PhD. And for example, if you are sure that you want to stay in industry, I think then it's fantastic. You know, you're already in the institute, and you are already in that hierarchy, and it's much easier to jump when you're there. You would make connections and so on, rather than you changing the field. But on the other hand, if you're still exploring and you are trying to figure out what you want to do, if academia, entrepreneurship, entirely changing, using science, but in policy, in communication, in other regulatory aspects or consultancy, or if you want to go for industry, I think doing it in academia in a university provides you all these options. So now I am taking courses in entrepreneurship, learning about policy making, just to understand how things work. So that then again, like I'm using the same strategy, but now in the funnel to really figure out what I want to do after my PhD. So it's up to you what you want, how your career goals are.
Yeah, that's very nicely put up. Yeah, Shashank, you had or Amitabh, I'm not sure who spoke it.
Yeah, that was actually one of the very interesting things that like you mentioned about creating a startup. Like if you're in academia and like if you're very lucky that you're working on something interesting and you come across an idea that you can create as a startup, that is like academia would be one of the best place to like go work on that, because industry, like strict industry, won't give you that sort of freedom. And even the hybrid organizations or national labs, for example, there could be restrictions depending on what kind of like IPs you'll be exposing. And but academia is more or less the funding is given on the basis that the research that will be done will be published, or at least after some time, after some sort of embargo, it will be published at a certain period of time. Then you can always have a good place to work on your ideas there.
Yeah, that's very well put up. So maybe we can wrap up this discussion, this really nice, insightful discussion, maybe with the last question to all of you. So we all are technically sitting outside India. Now, one question which all the audience had was that, how is the research environment in India, and why did you choose outside? Why not India? So, I mean, my question is that do you guys really think that India would be an option in the next couple of years, that you would like to come back to India, or how does it look for you? Maybe we can start with Amitabh.
So I feel like India has a very good emerging market, especially in terms of engineering. I'm not sure what this status of sciences research is there, but in engineering, both the government and the universities are pushing for the applications that you can actually use at certain levels, like at certain levels in the society for improvement, and they are very well, let's say, promoted. For example, just like I think 2 weeks back, I was talking to like one of the persons in METI, which is organizing the semiconductor mission, which is going to be running for the till 2028, and they are encouraging both startups, industries to work in this particular arena where you can create semiconductor devices. They want to manufacture it in India, and which is a huge step. If they are able to set up this industry, will be basically in the leagues with Taiwan's and China, who are creating like almost like 80%, let's say, of the world's semiconductor devices. So that's very interesting. And if you look at the startups in India then the path of or the way that they are actually um, like promoting the startup culture is very interesting. For example, if you are a new startup in the tech business, you don't have to wait for 4 years to get your IP patented. If you're declared as a startup, you can get it done within 6 months, and that's if you approach this way. I chose to like come outside because back when I was applying, I was not even sure what I wanted to do. And when I started working in quantum computing was nowhere in India. And the institute I knew was like TU Delft, which was doing really well, and it had a very good uh, overlap of electronics and quantum computing. So I decided to work over there, and then like pursued it further, and like one opportunity came after the other. But now when I'm collaborating, so I have a friend who did his master's with me in the same department, and he chose to go back to India and join a startup in India who's working in the quantum industry. And if you bring like this sort of like mixed experiences, then you can have very rewarding experiences in India. Or if you're going abroad, you can settle down here. But it all comes down to the kind of expertise you bring to the table.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. What exactly are you as an individual? What that means, not really the other aspect. So for you, Shashank, how does it look like? Do you think that India is on the cards, or do they have potential also in general?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like it's a very it is definitely a developing country, but it is an emerging country as well. Like if we look at any, like if you do a small consensus, like a how to put it, if you do a small kind of put out a questionnaire in any university and try to look it into how the researchers are distributed across a particular organization in terms of which country they are coming from, I would strongly say it would be like almost 50 to 60% might be from India and China. And if someone will ask me like why I moved to US and started doing research here, I can, like, the most polite way I put it is like the field that I was interested in is something which is an emerging field in US. But now if I look back, that is not really the case, because when I was moving for my PhD, I was not sure which field I'm going into, because as I said, you will be exploring for at least a year, like even in your PhD. So I would say like definitely India is something which is where there are a lot of opportunities. I'm not sure about what is the financial market, or in terms of research grant, what is the scenario in India. But now when I look back and see papers coming out, I see like equally good papers coming out from India, like from IISER Kolkata. I almost see on a regular basis that there is a lot of good research going on, even from IISc, IITs. So if someone is interested, it depends on which field he or she is going into. And depending on that field, definitely one should explore first India, like what are the opportunities in India and how that particular field is doing in India. And I'm pretty sure most of the fields in India are doing good. There might be a few things which are more quantum computing related, which are not as developed in India as compared to other countries in the world. But things like chemistry, biology, or I would say even biophysics, those kind of things are still like Indians are doing equally good research. Like Indians, when I say like I'm also an Indian, but Indians meaning those research that is coming out from India. So yeah, definitely India is an emerging market, and there are a lot of opportunities as I see now, and I think it's a good option even to pursue research or PhD in India as well.
That's a really great motivation, at least for the undergrads, because some of the people, some cannot afford it because they cannot make through, let's say, the scholarship, or sometimes the language skill is really an issue. So that's really good
Yeah,
motivation for them.
I think it's more of a hype in undergrad that I'm going to do research or PhD in US, in Europe. It's more about a hype that, oh, like if I think I was the same at like when I was at IISER Kolkata. Let's say if I'm talking to a senior, if someone will say, "Oh, I got a PhD offer from IISc," and someone will say, "I got a PhD offer from Cornell," I'm like, "Oh, Cornell," but I will not put that much of emphasis when someone will say IISc. I think that is something because that was the environment we were sort of living in, at least when I talk about my peers, and at that time we were not. At least I was not thinking about is like I never thought about doing PhD in India. Like frankly speaking, that is primarily because what I thought like coming to US or coming to Europe is something which is going to be a big thing rather than doing something from India. But now like it's all about what research you do, because there are a lot of students who are doing like I would not say average research, but just lack of vocabulary. But I would say like they are doing average research in US. At the same time, there are a lot of students who are doing great research in India. So it's more about how you cash out an opportunity that you get.
Yeah, that's true.
And ideas are not dependent on whether you are in India or you are in US or you are in Europe.
That's absolutely correct. Maybe to end up with Simran right now, because I guess you have been to one of the best institutes in cancer research, the MSK, but you then chose to come back from there. You know, this institute brand, you know, the MIT, Harvard, but you then said, oh no, I don't want to. So why? And maybe would you like to now take the next step back to, I don't know, ITs or ISC for your next journey as a PI or something? What's your thought on that?
I'm not sure about PI, but I do keep my eye on all the interesting stuff happening in India. I do know a lot of startup companies and a lot of researchers who are working in my field. In fact, I take initiative and I'm connected with them on LinkedIn, and I've had meetings with them because I do like to stay connected on this front, and I'm not sure where I'm going to be in the future. In my case, doing a master's PhD abroad was because, so everybody covered the research part. I think I'm going to go for the life part. I went for what I wanted out of my life. I love traveling. I love meeting new people, exploring different cultures. And this offered me, like the field that I was going into offered me all of it. Being in Poland, in Germany, in New York, now in Zurich, I get to do all sorts of things that I wanted to explore in my life. That doesn't mean that, I mean, it is a collective decision, right? It's not just about your research. It's not just about your life. You think of all the things and you do what makes the most sense to you. That being said, now after PhD, I again have to think, where I'm going to move and so on. And that's when I was saying that I keep in touch with all the things which are going on, be it US, be it Europe, or be it India. And then I try to think of potential places where I could be. So I think it's a combination of things that you want from your career and from your life. And it doesn't have to be same for everybody. Everyone has their own journey. And I think I totally agree with Shashank that people need to stop thinking, oh, yeah, what must. That's not how it works. There are a lot of challenges when you live abroad, trust me. So it's not that easy or that fancy. And you also miss your family, and there are a lot of emotional challenges as well. So you have to think thoroughly when you're taking decision, accounting for all the aspects of you. I think that's my final note.
Great. That was really a very insightful thought from all four of you. And So with that, I would like to thank all the four speakers. Thank you for joining.